meeting to order at 6:04. The agenda is set, so we're going to move right to presentations. And I believe we have our administrative team here to present to us.
Yeah, so I just wanted to review with the Board of Education our timeline over the last month or so in regards to where we stand currently for our reopening plans. Way back in July, when we were awaiting the guidance from the governor and from state ed, we decided to put a task force together of students, teachers, parents, board members, community members, knowing that we were going to have quite the mission on us for what lies ahead in reopening our schools for the fall. So back on July 14th, we put a task force meeting, put a task force committee together and had our first meeting. Unfortunately, the guidance was delayed a few days. So what we did is we anticipated what the guidance was going to come out. And with this task force, we ended up splitting up the members into three different committees. One was going to look at what it would look like to actually reopen 100%. Another committee was tasked to look at what our hybrid options could be, and the other task force committee was to look at what our remote plans would look like. And I had a couple administrators, kind of based upon their expertise, work with those committees in getting feedbacks and providing guidance. So over the course of the next 2 weeks, when the guidance came out, the administrators sifted through that many times, and it probably took me about 20 times to read it before I actually understood it. So what we did was we had to submit our reopening plans to the state from our district by July 31st. Please keep in mind that those reopening plans that are submitted, which is on our website, really took a telescope view of where we were going to be, not a microscope view. So really it was from a far distance that really we were assuring the state that we could follow the guidance and that we would, depending on what plan we were going to reopen with. However, the state and now the governor has left those decisions up to the local school districts on what plan you will go with. So our plans are in the portal. We are to basically know that they're approved until we hear otherwise. But we didn't have to indicate, are we completely remote, are we hybrid, or are we returning full to school? That is left up to us. So they're not concerned about what stage we're at. They're just concerned that we can assure them, no matter what plan that we're in, that we're following the guidelines. So on August 7th, obviously the governor gave this area the approval to reopen, again, leaving local decisions up to the school districts. On August 10th, which was last Monday, we had a task force meeting number 2 to solidify our plan for 100% in-person learning and teaching. So the administrators during this time sat with all of the departments, and looking at the guidance, we said, which is every school district's end goal, can we reopen? I will tell you that looking at the classroom sizes and transportation and what we can offer here and the space, the answer was yes. Many school districts that you hear about that are possibly hybrid or completely remote, their end goal is just the same as ours, to somehow eventually reopen full boat. But they run into transportation issues, they run into class size issues, they run into staffing issues. So I think we're in a very good spot that we are one of very few districts in the region that have the opportunity to open back up full time. So on that August 10th meeting, we put a plan together that abides by the guidelines. I will say that there was very little wiggle room, but it was also the easiest plan. That if we're here 100% full-time teaching and learning, that takes the burden off of us. We just need to now follow the guidelines. There weren't a lot of decisions to make. So that is our plan moving forward. And per the survey results that we had sent out back in July, at the end of July, in regards to the community and the stakeholder groups, it was overwhelmingly appropriate for us to use that as a goal because about 84% of the population wanted us to return full vote. Last night, August 17th, we then solidified our other two plans for hybrid and remote learning. I hope that those don't ever come into play, but again, we had to submit plans that was 3-tiered, and we'll be ready to go if we have to switch to one of those plans. This Thursday, August 20th, I will be making presentations to the community in regards to our reopening plans in the morning and the evening. And the next Monday, I'll also live stream all of this information to the community with Q&A periods. Obviously, the meeting on Thursday, we've already had a whole bunch of community members and families submit questions, so I'll address those in both those sessions. We had a meeting with the teachers last Friday in which we had a video conference with all of the teachers and rolled out all these plans and answered a lot of questions that they had as well. And our plan come September is September 3rd, which is a Thursday before Labor Day, is a superintendent conference day. Usually that is a teacher day to work in their classrooms. We're going to start right off with the whole district coming and receiving the required trainings that we have now under the new guidance. The following Tuesday, which is September 8th, once again, it's a superintendent conference day. It's usually a nice day with breakfast, and we kind of have a kickoff. The district staff will be involved in trainings all day in regards to reopening. We all need to be on the same page with our protocols and procedures, and there's just a handful of trainings that we need to do. Knowing that, and knowing that, although families and students, I'm sure, are nervous and there's some anxiety coming back, I'm nervous and have anxiety. So we decided that we would have an extra 2 days to get the teachers acclimated back to their own surroundings. So we moved superintendent conference days to September 9th and the 10th. September 9th, which is a Wednesday, will be the teacher day to work in their classrooms. And then that gives us another day on September 10th to provide more trainings and to really kind of get settled in before our students return on Friday, September 11th. Now, I've had a lot of questions about why are you having the kids come back just for 1 day? Why don't you just take another day and have them come back on Monday? We think it's very important for the kids to get back here just for a day. To walk around, to see what's expected, just to get a feel for what this is going to look like. I do anticipate that day to be nuts. The administrators are ready for it. We'll make sure that the teachers are ready for it. There's going to be a lot of monitoring and changing and fixing, because while these plans may look great on paper, they can instantly create some issues. So we just felt that it was great for the kids to get here for 1 day on that Friday, and then we can decompress over the weekend and again have the kids return on Monday for full instruction. So to the Board of Education, that has been our timeline, and our plan is to come back full boat with 100% learning and teaching. So I do have the administration here. If the board members have any questions, I've provided you with all of the information. They've been a part of all of these presentations. They'll be with me on that Thursday to the community, because each of us has our role and has our departments and has our buildings, but I figured instead of spending another 2 or 3 hours presenting that, if the board had any specific questions, they're here to answer for you.
For the elementary school, asking for a friend, if students want to self-dismiss and walk home, I looked through that plan, I didn't see it there, I may have missed it. What's the plan for kids that are just walking out the building?
So they will have to check in, they will have to check in with Kim Fisher and let us know that they're ready to leave, and we will help them through the right path, because we really encourage them to walk behind the school down to the high school, because we don't have a sidewalk crossing in the front, and we don't usually want them in that parking lot area. So it'll be the same as years past, where if we have bike riders and walkers, they will be the ones that will be only checking in with Mrs. Fisher right in the office.
John, when we started to put this task force together, on our initial attempt was anybody that applied to be on them could be in them. So is that how true is of anybody that wanted to help shape and form this for these task force? Everybody that applied was able to be on these?
Yes, yes, everybody responded to Tara, she put a list together, and to answer your question, we didn't turn anybody down. So anybody that was on there, we allowed them.
I have a question for the two principals. How many people have taken you up on the offer of remote learning and not sending their students to school?
So I have 50 students whose parents have inquired, and a lot of those parents, we've given them till the 31st to commit to that, but many of those parents right from the start said, I likely won't take that option, but I'm interested in kicking the tires on it and seeing what it's all about. So I won't have the final numbers on how many choose that until the 31st.
And I have less than 10 students that have inquired, and I have one that's fully committed to remote learning.
And our homeschooling numbers have come up a little.
Yes, Tara, the last was what, 34? 34 homeschool. We usually have about 19, 20, so.
That's 34 students, right?
Correct.
Number of families might be 15 families, 18.
Probably, yeah. I'd say probably 20 families. Usually is if they're gonna homeschool their kids, they're gonna homeschool all of them, so, yeah, so.
Do we know
A little bit of an increase.
Do we know if any of those, maybe some of the ones that have inquired about the remote learning now as well?
I know that one family specifically inquired about homeschooling with Farah and then reached out to me for remote learning. And what their idea was they weren't sure what one or the other would look like. They wanted to get all the information that they could.
Man, can you talk a little bit about the BOCES, how BOCES schedule has impacted our school district?
Sure, and I think I'll take this off as I answer that, so make sure my voice projects to those that are over there. So the BOCES schedule was set up so that our students would go a full day of BOCES. And that came down the pipe in July. We had our schedule already set up where our BOCES kids were scheduled for half days. So we had to make a tough choice at that time to blow the schedule up, really start from scratch, which was, weeks and weeks and weeks, if not months of work, or to find a way to make it work. So what we decided to do is allow our BOCES students to leave campus for the full day on Thursdays and Fridays, and then on the days they were here, they'd still have a half of their schedule open. And what we're going to plan and what we're going to make it work is have those students go what we're calling a remote learning lab in the library. There they'll have, I think it's 4, it'll span all the parts of 4 periods, and that's where they'll work on the work that they miss when they're off campus on Thursdays and Fridays.
Is that similar for students that are going to GCC as well? So how does
So the students that are going to the Justice Academy or the Legal Academy have the exact same schedule.
same, so they're part of the cohort that?
Yep.
Okay.
So what we did is reached out to all the parents individually, and what we asked them to do is really weigh their options. Is that something they're still interested in pursuing if you're a junior? Now's your chance. If you wanted to make a decision to back out, we would support you. If you're a senior and you're already in it, we encourage them to find a way to make it work, and we think we can.
So that's 16 families, 31 students.
16 families?
That's the homeschool.
Another question. So let's say a student in either of the buildings say, I'm not wearing my mask today. What's the response? What's the response for the elementary? What's the response for the high school?
So that's in the high school. That's a situation that will come up.
Sure.
So what we don't want to do is turn this into a punitive action. No mask, you'll get fill in the discipline here. Detention, ISS. To me, that's not a friendly environment, and I don't think it's the tone we want to set. What we're really reminding students is that everyone in the building has a choice. You can learn remotely, and we'll support you. You can come in person. The agreement, if you're going to come in person, is that you follow the guidelines we've set up. We will very politely have a conversation with students and parents whose kids don't want to wear masks, that they are self-choosing to learn remotely.
So I picture myself as like maybe an 11th grade teacher. doesn't want to wear that mask, what's my recourse? What do I say to that kid? There's 11th grade teacher.
So you're the teacher?
I'm a teacher.
So the teacher's
That's way above my
the
level.
teacher is gonna go out of the way and do what I think they do an excellent job around here. Is they're gonna build relationships with the kids, so that the kids don't follow rules because they're scared of a punishment, but because they have a relationship with that teacher. They're gonna toe the line. They're gonna follow the rules, but that'll happen.
Sure.
So that teacher is gonna remind the student, you're making a bad choice, and we'll give you one more chance. Put your mask on the student. If they refuse, we'll play this out. The student will be sent onto the office where Mr. Mantra and I will have that conversation with them. That it's not optional, and that you're making the choice, like you did today, to learn from home.
How about the elementary?
So I think we're going to have a lot of training time. We're going to have a lot of second chances. The luxury of the way my classrooms are set up and being in their cohorts, that they can stay at their seats in their space if they need to have a longer mask break than others. I will also be working with the teachers. Like Matt said, it's all about building relationships. I can foresee having conversations where we're calling home on speakerphone to say, this is what our concern is. Do you have concerns at home? What is the barrier? Why is this child not wanting to wear the mask? And how can we facilitate better? You know, I do have some littles that have some sensory needs, and so bringing in OT and PT for some additional sensory breaks may have to be part of our plan for some of these kids.
I just think
And
the tag on the back of my shirt drives me crazy. I
Yes.
can't imagine wearing a mask.
right. And that's why all of our classrooms are set up so that the desks are able to social distance. So once they're in their space or their bubble, they can take that break and they can be without a mask. If they were wanting to go outside or transitioning, they may have to wait, and I may have to go down and support them until they're ready to transition, so that we're not in that power struggle back and forth. My goal at the end of the day is to not shame them or make them feel upset because they're being disciplined over a mask. This is something that a lot of our students don't fully understand, and I need to work with my counselors to come up with social stories and talk about why we have a mask and the reasons for it and when to take them off and when to keep them on, and almost build some of those visual schedules for some of those kids.
I have a question, and I don't know if it's for you, John, or for the principals. If, under the guidelines of the health department, if students are sent home and they can't return until they've had a doctor visit and a negative COVID test, how do they go about learning? Is it an automatic switch to remote learning? Does the district have to provide tutoring for them? What's the
Good question. So one of the things from the start, and I mentioned last night, remote is something the state might say, we wonder, will they say you're shut down, you're learning from remote. But the reality is, it's there from day one, whether it's 1 kid, 10 kids, or 200 kids. There will be a student who chooses to learn remote. So our staff and teachers are going to prepare to teach those kids, whether they're sitting right in front of them or whether they're at home. Every day, the plan will be to reach kids who might not be in your classroom. So on a 1-day basis, we'll be prepared to reach a kid who isn't home. Certainly, and there might be an overlap. I'm envisioning a teacher teaching a particular subject who is recording their instruction and they're going to upload it on a Google Classroom for consumption later. Maybe there's a day or two overlap. So if a kid goes home in 1 day, maybe that's not a seamless transition. But if it's multiple days, that student's going to be able to seamlessly go to remote learning. And we think they can do that without missing a beat.
Okay, so that takes care of the students. So did I understand you just to say that all teachers have to record all lessons?
Not record. We're going to work with teachers to create a system that works for them, whether it be synchronous, that students are tuning in live to their classroom, or asynchronous, where they are either recording lessons or putting content available on Google Classroom for the students to access at home. But it won't be something we force on there or a one-size-fits-all. We want to work with teachers, because it has to work for the teachers as well as the students. And there's a comfort zone that they'll find their niche, and what's good for one teacher might not work for another. But we're going to spend those training days that Mr. Fiskus mentioned really working with teachers on the available technology and what they can do to meet the needs of both those students.
So who makes the decision, and I guess it's going to be very different at the elementary and middle high school, who makes the decision about whether a student, if Justin gets sent home, with the sniffles, who makes the decision about whether Justin has to get up and go to his math class at 8 o'clock in the morning, or if he gets to do it at midnight? The synchronous or asynchronous?
Good question. So one of the things that we're going to do, it's a little different than we did in the spring. I like this. We're going to have a check-in form that students that are on remote instruction will have to submit every day by 8 o'clock. And we're going to facilitate that with a staff member who's going to sift through those and facilitate that information they get, because it's more than an attendance form. It's a form of support. The kid's going to be able to say, I need support in this class. My goals for today are X, Y, and Z. I'm struggling with fill in the blank. And then also a part on there to measure, to take the pulse of their social and emotional needs. I want to be put in touch with my counselor to talk about some things. So that person who facilitates that in the morning will number one, check if they're here, but also put them in a position to get the support that they need, social, emotionally, and academically. And then we'll check in, the plan is, and we're still working on the details, to check in late in the day also with office hours. Hey, how's it going? You set this as your goal for the day. Have you been doing that?
Okay, so now we have Justin's emotional, social needs taken care of. What about his math, his English, his
Same
social
way.
skills? Does he have to check in and have his classes while he's at home?
What we're
at
going to
the
work,
same time?
what we're going to work with is the teacher to set up a schedule with the remote learners in their class that works for them. Be it, he's tuned in at 8, he's checked in on the form, we've facilitated that, he's here, there's assignments he's accessing. But that teacher might say to Justin, I need you to tune in. I'm going to have you tune into my class every day at 8:15, second period, because we're learning algebra that day. Whereas another teacher might say, Justin, you did the check-in form, the assignments are on there. You go through them the best you can. I can touch base with you during office hours and address whatever questions you have.
And to interject for the elementary, if there's a sick student going home, Susie does a lot of follow-up check-ins with the parents. How are they doing? How are they feeling? Our teachers communicate a lot with the families. So if there's a student that just has a fever, they have strep throat, they don't have the energy, they're not going to be expected to tune in at that point. They'll have similar days to get caught up, just like they have in the past. It will just be available to them faster than them having to return to school or having the parent come and pick up a packet of information. Everything can be there digitally or with different videos and links to the content so that they can get to that material on their time.
One more?
Sure.
With so few people taking advantage or disadvantage of the remote learning, but it still is the question, how are we addressing the issue that in Alabama and Oakfield, not everyone has Wi-Fi access?
I'm going to let Mr. Fiskus answer that one about some of the steps that we've taken. for
Wi-Fi
that.
access. The district has to make sure that if we go hybrid and remote, that every household has Wi-Fi access. We have purchased currently right now in our first order 275 Wi-Fi or the MiFi's aspects. Something that we have to guarantee students. So we had to go ahead and purchase those.
So would those be one per household?
It depends on the number of students. We currently worked with Kajit, which is a company. Rob had sent out to the communities of, number one, how many kids are in your household, would you need internet access? So we're looking at, we can have 2 kids on one access point. If you have more than 3 kids, we would probably give you 2. But if then all of a sudden you throw in 2 parents that are also teachers, we could give it a family up to 3 access points. But that'll be by a case-by-case basis. But we are prepared if we have to go hybrid or remote, that every household per the survey would have internet access.
Thank you.
John, is that a monthly basis, those MiFi, or is that?
That is for this year.
So it's a full,
Correct. I believe they were $295 per spot for the year, unlimited access. Just something that we had to.
For the extra community, people in the room at some point since today, I think you communicated to us that the 20% cut aids may be
Yes, so we received word yesterday that, right now, they are fully funding all of our programs and our state aid up to 80%. What they're doing with the 20%, I'm not saying that they're cutting, but they are withholding that from us. And, any future funding, right now, we can look at it being 80% funded.
So I think bottom line is at some point we have to figure out how we're gonna balance all these extra costs, like Wi-Fi, in homes in rural areas with, cuts in funding, so that's.
Correct. It's gonna occur.
Transportation, Josh, and it sounds like everything came together there, okay, how challenging was that?
Our busing, we weren't overloaded like maybe some districts. I mean, I had to reroute some routes and move some kids around, but we're currently under 50% capacity with all the routing changes I've done on our runs, and we haven't had to add any new runs this year. Compared to last year, we had the same amount of runs, so it's worked out. We had a transportation survey that went out to families, and that kind of helped guide who was going to drive their kids and stuff like that. I've been making calls to follow up with stuff like that to see who's going to be where, and we have a need for some better set schedules this year, which is everybody's really helped out with that this year so far. I got more calls to make, but the community's really helped with that. So the busing should be good to go. We're prepared and ready.
Did you have a lot of parents that said they would drive their own children as opposed to taking the bus?
We've had some. I mean, it seems like there's quite a few that drive anyways. We have, I don't know if you've been down to elementary school at dismissal time. There's quite a few parents that would pick up, but I'd say there's been a few more, and some that have like volunteered, like, well, I can drive if we need, somebody needs a spot. I've seen a lot of that where families are willing to, to give up their spot on the bus, and we haven't really had to do that too much yet. I mean, everybody that's wanted a spot on a bus has one. We don't tell anybody no. We just, we have to move some stuff around. That's all. But it's, so it's,
Drivers, that was definitely a population that people were putting at risk, they're all comfortable.
our drivers are ready to go. I talked to a lot of them, just about everybody today. We came in for our mask on, mask off video. And everybody's ready to, there's some that are a little worried, but most of them are ready to go back to work. They've been calling me and talking like they're ready to go back to work in June, so July, March. We do have some elderly, drivers, and they don't bat an eyelash. They're coming back. They're ready to go. So, and there'll be protections in place as much as we can. They have masks, and we have non-alcohol hand sanitizers that we use on the bus. We can't have the regular hand sanitizers because it's flammable. So that stuff will help, and the windows open to help ventilate. We can have the windows open in the wintertime and still have the heaters going, and the buses will still be warm. They're very warm in there.
Cold driving down 50 degrees. It seemed like it would be cold driving down the road.
If you have the heater cranked all the way up, it is very warm even with windows down. Most of the time, in the wintertime, you don't have to have the heater on. You just have it with the running. So we'll have plenty of ventilation on the bus.
Questions?
Temperatures that we talked about some temperatures being effectively related to our families. Have you thought about further, this is probably more for you, John, what we really do when those kids show up and we don't have?
Yes, so I actually just sent a form that we received from Jiva in regards to a parent attestation that they are going to temperature check. It's kind of like a contract. They will temperature check their child while at home. We have reasons why. Number one, the privacy of the student. Number two, really the guidance says that they should not be on a bus or on campus without being temperature checked. And number three, that if they do have a fever, they'll stay at home. The guidance, when it came out, is almost impossible for any school district to temperature check every kid before they get on a bus or before they arrive at campus. We have walkers, we have bikers, we have drivers, we have kids that get driven to school. Plus, we have all those kids on the bus. So what we are going to do is push out a daily screening form to every family regarding their child or children. We will do this as a test run that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday before your child reports here on Friday. So the bottom line is that we're asking all of the parents and the guardians and the families to fill out that form. It honestly takes about 10 seconds. There's a couple of questions about COVID, a couple of questions about the symptoms that they have. You do have to actually input a temperature, and that you submit that to us. On the back end, we get the information of who filled out the form, but more importantly, we also get the information of who filled out the form and somehow they tested positive for a symptom. Our nurses and our administration will make sure that, number one, that kid's not on campus, but there's also a report that we'll get where the families did not fill it out. When those kids arrive to school, we will follow up with our nurses, and we're currently looking on getting some extra help for the nurses to do the daily screenings. But we'll get that information, from those daily, push notifications. It's very human that after a while, parents just don't fill it out anymore. We are taking that, and we talk to our school attorneys, we are taking that as a passive agreement, just like you would any other day at school, that if you're sending your child to school, they're symptom-free. So that's how the school districts in the GVUP region are really abiding by that. But we will certainly do our due diligence and follow up. All our employees are getting the same notification, so we will certainly get on the back end who filled it out. If they didn't, we'll follow up with them as soon as they get on campus. The one thing that I think the community really needs to understand, and I had to stress this with our teachers and employees, and I will stress this until the school year starts, is that if you mark that your child has a headache or a sore throat or has a runny nose or has muscle soreness, you are positively screening them for COVID. Therefore, your child cannot return to school until they get a negative COVID test. That may take weeks. So I kind of said there needs to be a healthy balance with indicating that your child or an employee has a symptom. So for example, Monday morning I had very sore muscles, but I worked out on Sunday. And I cut the grass on Sunday, and I kind of had runny eyes, and my allergies were bothering me. I am not going to mark yes that I have muscle soreness, because therefore I submit that I can't return to work until I get a negative COVID test, which means I'm probably going to have to call my doctor. He'll say he'll see me next week. The tests around this area are very hard to find, and then you may have to wait 5 or 7 days before you get the results back. So, I'm telling families and employees to stay home when you're sick. Please don't come. But there just needs to be a little bit of healthy balance and logic that if it's something where, your child may get a lot of headaches and migraines just because of whatever, I would say, I can't tell you yes or no not to check that box, but just understand the ramifications of when you do. There's a whole bunch of protocols and procedures you need to go through. I don't want you to lie, but the clarification that we received in the region, because that was a big question that we had when this new guidance came out last week, was that if you're not sending your child to school, or if an employee is not coming to work, then we don't need to know that you filled out the form. So, we don't ask employees when they're sick, they just have leave time, so when they're not here, we don't question where they were. They just may have had a doctor's appointment or something. So, we just need to monitor that very carefully. And even with our nurses, they're going to be put through some protocols and trainings, because a kid may come down and not feel well. We'll certainly check for a fever. But if a kid says, my throat is a little scratchy, okay, does that mean that we got to send them out of here? And that also includes any siblings of that child and their parents. it gets to be a little cumbersome. And, you know, if that child is here and they say, oh yeah, my mom and dad teach over in Elba, guess what? I'm calling Elba and saying you gotta call those teachers. It gets to be, you know, really, it could go downhill really quickly. So I'm hoping that there might be some more lax in that guidance. We're working with our departments of health because they aren't consistent across the counties, but currently right now, that's the protocol. So we just need to be very careful in screening our own kids and marking those boxes. Could really create some issues.
John, what you just said brings some questions to my mind. If an employee of the district is sent home,
Correct.
and I'm saying is sent home as opposed to they leave of their own volition, do they have to use their own leave days to accommodate whatever quarantine the health department is required?
So again, that is a case-by-case basis. For your example, if an employee at lunchtime doesn't feel well and goes to the nurse's office and they have a fever and we send them home, that would probably be, you know, a half day. But as they're now, as I said, it is mandatory for them to return, they have to get a COVID test. So we would follow up with that teacher of, did you contact your primary care physician? When do you have a doctor's appointment? When can you get a test? They are actually covered under that Family First Coronavirus Response Act. So there's different categories, but for the most part, no.
So if Justin tests positive, he's sitting next to me, I have to pick up. If Justin tests positive for COVID-19 and I'm one of his coworkers in the cafeteria, therefore the health department requires me to go home, then do I use my own
No.
leave days?
No. You would be part of their contact tracing. If they quarantine you, then you are now officially quarantined. Again, there's a category that protects you
Okay.
in regards to not using your sick time and getting paid for a certain many of hours and all of that. So that's going to be very interesting too come the fall when those situations arise. But there's many categories that protect employees in those regards. Yep.
And then who pays for all of this COVID testing if, in the contact tracing, if a family is quarantined by the health department and there are 6 people in the family, who pays for all of those?
It's up to the family to do that.
The health department doesn't pay for those?
I do not believe so. You have your own insurance and
What plans do we have installed for subs? I can see things happen. Teachers fall. Are we going to be able to get subs in, or are we going to be fighting with every other school to get subs?
right. So that is going to be an issue. That's something that we're going to have to monitor. What we are going to start off the school year by doing is having 2 extra full-time, well, I don't want to say full-time, but 2 extra subs in each of the buildings just to start off the day. So Mr. Peterson and Mrs. Gaylor will have 2 AM subs that won't be connected to a teacher and 2 PM positions not connected to a teacher. When someone goes on there to look for a subbing position, it's usually, oh, I'm going to work for this teacher half day, full day. We'll just have them as additional bodies. We won't connect them to a teacher, and hopefully they get filled. So when they report to school, we're going to say, all right, right now you're just an extra help for the morning or the afternoon. Some of them would actually sign up for both the AM and PM slot. So we would have 2 extra bodies in the buildings, in both buildings at any one time. That's going to be a concern of mine, where staffing becomes shorter. And we'll just have to adjust and we'll have to monitor. And that is my concern too, with teachers kind of positively screening themselves. They could very easily be out more weeks. So we just need to be very careful when we do that, that it's something that's really out of the ordinary, and not something that, you just woke up one morning with a scratchy throat and having to mark that I have a sore throat. It's a healthy balance.
I mentioned too, for students at the state for testing, they need to go.
Yes. Yep. Correct, yes. Because a student that gets screened or sent home, they could be out for, and you had mentioned, out for 2 or 3 weeks, depending on how quickly they can get a test. They automatically go into remote learning. So,
This is a question for Jordan and the principals again. How confident are you? Are you confident that you have the correct physical distancing within the classrooms without having someone's nose up against the front wall or the chalkboard or toasting, cooking themselves under the view sun? How?
I'll let Jordan start.
There are some rooms that got very tight when we tried to go to the maximum number. Max worked really hard to adjust class sizes or adjust where the classes are going to be. We've also worked with the teachers and we've come up with a lot of better plans, and we've been able to make most of the classrooms that we've set up look very much like a normal classroom. So it's coming. It's just a matter of trying to figure out the best way to do it. We know that we can fit that many kids in the classroom. It's just how do you do it? How do you space them out and get that, maintain that social distance and have it functional as well. So we've been doing pretty well.
And I'll add this, that there is a sacrifice to the 6 feet apart in a classroom. The sacrifice is, I think good instruction and good learning looks and feels a certain way. There's collaboration, there's peer-to-peer interaction. That's going to have to be reimagined, and I think there's going to be a feeling out period within classrooms. So that's a sacrifice to me. We also had to sacrifice in some cases where we couldn't get that number under. In some cases, and Jordan's crew did an amazing job. There's X amount of desks in there, we got the class under, we're good to go. But some we couldn't. So now I'm asking Teacher X to take their kids to another room. It's never ideal. They have supplies, they have posters on the wall they point to. It's a sacrifice, and we're happy that we minimize that sacrifice, but it is a sacrifice that we're still living with some larger classes. There'll be a teacher who teaches in the community room several times a day. We've minimized it, but that's not ideal. But we've spent a lot of time, I think, to minimize those risks, and I feel pretty good that really good instruction and learning can take place in the spaces that we've created.
And right now, I don't have that situation happening. I was fortunate enough that some of the rooms had false walls that were really easy to remove. So where one side was a really small space that maybe the speech path had used in the past, that doubled the classroom. So we could get 30 people in that space, and I don't have class sizes of that nature. So the only time we're going to run into a situation where a special area would have to push into a class is UPK, which in hindsight is probably better for them not to transition through the hallways where they're touching things and the mask is going to fall off, and so it's going to be better for Leah to go to them. And depending on the opposite side for band, if there's lessons or if we can rearrange the schedule so that Kristen's false wall can be opened, then they'd be able to go there and spread out. So we didn't have that same restriction just because I had some fake walls that could easily come down to accommodate some of the spaces.
And what did you do with the speech path?
She has a very large classroom.
Okay.
Yeah, she has her own space.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess we're good there. Thank you very much for answering all those questions. Good luck. That's not so. Moving on to minutes. Approval of minutes. Be resolved that the minutes of the July 28, 2020 regular meeting be approved. Have a motion?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes. Surrounding visitors requests. I'll just, because we do have a few, and we don't normally have too many. About about 3 minutes per visitor to say what's on their mind. Discussions involving individual district personnel or students are not permitted in public session. The board is present to hear your comments tonight, but may refrain from commenting until we've had an opportunity to thoughtfully reflect on what you've said. If your comments require a response from the board, we will follow up with a response in an appropriate manner. So we're here to listen to those that want to speak. You may not necessarily get a response. It doesn't mean it's because we don't appreciate you being here. We'll take some time amongst ourselves if the response is required and go about that. So I've got a list of 4 here. I'll just go in order. Mike's and Freeings first.
I really only put that I wanted to speak in case I felt there was something I needed to comment on. But in the course of discussing the busing, I just have a question. Is it statutory or mandated in any way that middle high school students within the village have to be bused? Because I grew up in the village, and throughout my entire school career, I didn't get bused. And with no ill effects. Occasionally I had a frozen mullet, but other than that. I'm just wondering, is it absolutely necessary that we bus the students, especially in the middle high school within the village?
Yeah. Our philosophy is that we want to provide families a service, so there's no reason that we can't. We're also concerned about, on those terrible wind, weather, snow days, that we want to be able to provide transportation to all of those students. So it's not something that we want to take away.
Just a thought. We didn't have it, we survived. Just to try to minimize the numbers. And
Correct. If we had to do something like that, that would certainly be something that Josh and the administrative team would grapple over and send out notifications. But we're not at that point. Transportation is good. Again, we're not. We don't want to discontinue services based on our plans. We want to make sure that we can either change it, fine tune it, fix it, but we don't ever want to put families in the community in a rough spot. So we're not there yet at this point. So
We thought about it though, Mike. It has come up.
yes, it has come up.
It has come up, Mike.
Just a thought. Beyond that, I just want to say to the task force, thank you. Superintendent John, I want to thank you for your leadership, for having the fortitude to go this route. I can tell you, talking to literally every parent and every other school district I've spoken to, that you made Oakfield the envy of the entire county. I've talked to parents who say, do you think there's any chance I could get my kid into OACS? I tell them no. But I just want to say that that's the predominant feeling that come across throughout the county, that we become the envy of the rest of the county, at least among the parents. So I just want to thank you for that. So,
Thanks, Mike. Jeremy Yassis.
So I just want to, I put my notes in writing so I didn't forget, sorry. We have come together tonight to show our appreciation for the countless hours that our superintendent, Mr. Fiskus, and the admin team, Mr. B, Mrs. Gaylor, even Josh Lux, and I know that Josh called parents to say, I have a blended family in my house. Who's going here? Who's going where? Let's make this. We don't get that in the communities. And that's a huge benefit for our small school. Just want to say thank you for all the hours that you put in. I'm ecstatic, and I'm representing probably 5 other parents who couldn't be here today that are having the same mindset that OA is able to offer class in school for 5 days a week. This shows that we are leaders in the community by taking a stand and trying to do what's best for our students, who are the major stakeholders in all of this. We try to teach our kids to be leaders all the way up from elementary, and so graduation, and even the speech that often says, think outside the box and go for it. Well, OA is going for it. While some other schools can't logistically, or are too timid for fear of backlash, whether it be from government, staff, or the community, I have come tonight on behalf of a few, and I think there is also a few others here, who want to say thank you, and we are grateful. I mean, the thought is, in the event that we do have to go to a hybrid and it doesn't work, then we're equal to everybody else. But I think we're here, and everybody else is there. And yes, Jordan has made some room in elementary. I don't have many kids in there anymore, but we have the room, which is great. But we were the first one in graduation. We set the bar. I don't think anybody can get close. We're also setting the bar for the next school, and I'm proud of that. With that in mind, please keep some of us in mind here that are showing up. I know not many people come to these meetings. should opposition arise, whether it come from teachers or the community. Some of us are here because we got an alert just today that a lot of the teachers are against us. A minor portion of the teachers are against us. And we all came together to say as a community, we're for it. I think you're always going to have a small percentage that's going to, whether you're Republican, Democrat, whatever it might be, it doesn't mean that they're wrong, right, or is allowed to have their own beliefs. But know that the community's behind you, and that we want to have 5 days in school. Some might have legitimate health concerns, others might have babysitting issues, others might have just their belief. But either way, I look to a 16-year-old OA student who worked before COVID at TOPS, during COVID, during its highest peak, and continues to be at TOPS as a cashier. She's had to work this whole time. I think of others in their profession, whether they are, at 7-Eleven or waitresses or tool guys, you can pick anything that you want. They had to adapt, improvise, and overcome. It is a change for all of us. Some of the teachers we've heard don't want to be filmed. They're nervous that the parents are going to hear or whatever. Listen, we all say stupid things, right? Sometimes I'm the first one to say it. It happens, right? But look at law enforcement. All of a sudden, they have to wear body cam. They can't even sneeze without people knowing. And then they have bail reform. My point is, COVID is changing everything. And so everybody has to change a little bit for the major stakeholders, which are our kids. And I even put it in for myself. I'm a landlord. I got no eviction, right? So I have to change as well. But I want to make it clear, and a lot of us are OA on the board, and even some in admin, that we're OA graduates. OA wasn't built on woe is me, and neither was America. We're a strong community built around strong work ethic. We work hard, sometimes we play hard, but we always take care of each other. The grumblings that we are hearing from some of the staff are the same grumblings from the same staff when admin changed here, and there's more accountability. So I just hope that you remember our kids, the leaders. We are trying to raise, with the help of the school, to think outside the box, be the first to stand up for what you believe. The community is behind you and is more than appreciative. And in just a little bit of time, you got pretty good representation. So just want to say thank you to everybody involved.
Thanks, Ruben. Kristen Smith.
Who can follow that? I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. I've been part of the task force. I have had conversations with many parents, many students. This one's hard to please, and you have an A+ from our household. We cannot think of one thing that you guys have not addressed or even said we'll take care of this, and the next week we come back and you guys have not one solution, but 2 and 3. And we cannot believe the amount of effort that we've all put forth. I'm sure there is some questions from staff. I'm a staff at Rockport, and I have questions about how I'm going to do my job. But I know their passion and everybody's main goal is to have the best we can. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be an A+ year, but it's going to be an A+ effort, and we're going to come out with what we got. And we're just very pleased with the kind of effort we've had at OA. So thank you.
Thanks, Kristen. Carly's name is on here.
Oh, Carly does not want to speak. She's very pleased with her. But she'll answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you. Anybody, that's the end of my list. Anybody I missed there that wants to take a moment? Okay, thank you very much. Approval of warrants. Be resolved that after all of the bills, payment of the 7/22/85 warrants and journal claims, auditor reports be approved. With a motion? A second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes. Treasurer's report. Be resolved that the treasurer's reports for June and July of 2020 be approved. With a motion? A second? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes.
Hi, can I? Can you guys hear me?
I don't know.
John, you don't have to go to that if you don't want.
There you go, right there.
And enthusiast.
Yeah, we got you.
Hi. Okay, great. Thank you so much. I just wanted to give you a couple of updates on my list. As we discussed, I'm asking for approval for our transfer into the reserves for the final 2019-2020 year. All as we discussed, the information is laid out, and hopefully everybody understood my email on Friday, discussing that again and reaffirming the things that we've already discussed. The second thing I have on my list is I'm hoping we can put together the audit committee for September. It would be at 5:30 for the audit presentation. So assuming you're all on board with that, I can just confirm that with the auditors and we can move forward with that. And then the last thing, I know Mike already, I'm sorry, I know John already discussed it. The 20% withholding on aid, that is something they are starting with a prior year payment. So we had a couple of stated receivables in 1920. Any of those will be reduced by about 20%. So we're looking at about $30,000-ish from that as a reduction in one of those payments. And again, we're still waiting to hear if that's something we will receive in the future or if that is truly an aid reduction. So does anybody have any questions for me on which reserves we're funding or why we're funding them, or anything about the audit committee?
So that's 9/15, right? September 15th is our next board meeting. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
And so
Yes.
she's asking us to be here at 5:30 for that. So that'll be
Yep.
interesting moving up their first full week of school.
Yep, and then you will have to also accept the audit that day as well.
Okay. So bottom line with the surplus you're asking us to move, we'll be moving into a reserve fund that we will have access to either to fund our capital project or to fund operations if we so choose.
Correct, so the unemployment reserve allows us to deem it overfunded, and then within 60 days, we can move that into another reserve. So we can do that at the end of the next fiscal year, which I don't think will put us behind in any sort of manner in terms of the capital project.
Yeah, thank you for coming up with that solution. That seems like the most flexible option for us to get ready for what may or may not happen.
Right.
Any other questions for me?
No, I just have one out of curiosity for Nicole, for the capital reserve. I don't know where I'm
I don't know where you are. I'm sure you're right. She's in Florida. So where are you?
Anyways, she's not up in the booth. Nicole, where did you come up with the 917 for the capital reserve fund? I think it was that we put in there. Where is that? Was it $917? It just seemed like a really number.
So we have to allocate our interest. So we earn interest of a certain amount on our reserve funds. And so those are technically reserved funds and we're earning interest on them. I have to allocate those based on the dollar value of the reserves. So I do that at year end, and one of the reserves that gets more money typically than the rest is the debt reserve, because we go out to finance our buses, and there's typically it's been between $2,000 and $10,000 in a premium that we receive that also is designated and must be moved into that reserve. So just like the interest payments, there's a couple of requirements for us as a district to move those funds. Certain funds we have to move directly into reserves that we receive as revenue.
All right, that makes sense. I just thought it was a funny number, 917. I don't know, 920 might have been that.
It's just an average allocation of interest.
Okay, thanks, Nicole.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Nicole.
Yep, thank you.
Enjoy your vacation.
Try.
So again, yesterday the districts received word about the 80% funding of all of the total allotment. It's frustrating because they still won't come out and say what they're doing with that 20%. They're withholding it right now. They could release it tomorrow, they could release it in 3 months, or they could just get rid of it. It's very frustrating because it puts a lot of districts at bay with the decisions that they have to make, and I don't have any good answers. I will tell you that 20% of state aid cutting is $1.8 million to the district. We've had, and Nicole immediately when that came out said, hey, when I return, we've got to talk about this because we do have 2 and 3 tiered plans that get us to 1.8 million, and that could really, really decimate us. But it's hard because you don't want to do that until you get a final answer. And it's frustrating because you just kind of continue on with what you have, which kind of leads me into the next piece. They just released this in time regarding UPK. So they were holding UPK funding, and I had mentioned to the board, and the superintendents were getting nervous that New York State was playing with us, that they weren't going to give us any guarantees, and actually Kevin McDonald was on the phone and said that if we were going to get an answer before the school year started, don't wait for it. Well, they've now kind of lumped UPK into this piece where they are going to fund it, but they won't tell us, but now they're kind of lumping it in with this 80%. So to answer Lorna's question, if we run our UPK program, we will probably, and if we're only funded at 80%, that will cost us approximately $24,000. I would like to continue on with our UPK program. We have families, we have 36 kids, it's full, we have 2 sections. I would hate to see that go. I think it's academic programming, but I'm going to need a little bit of board direction if you wanted me to continue with that. The concern that I have is if you cut UPK because of the funding, there's a possibility that we reduce our staff by 2 people. And that is not where I personally want to go. So I did take a survey this past week, and except for one district, we are all continuing on with our UPK programs.
All of them except for one?
Yes. Based on even the 80% of being fully funded. And like I said, for our district, that could be somewhere around $24,000 to $25,000, which we can sustain.
So my question is, it might be more for Lynn, is given with what we know that we have to do, what does UPK look like under COVID guidelines? I know I wouldn't want to be in control of any kids that age.
Right. So the UPK grant, we cap out at 18 kids. It's 1 teacher and 1 aide. Jordan has worked with me. We have the trapezoid tables that we're separating. We're talking about barriers. We're talking about desks. We're running out of desks, to be honest. So if there's a barrier, we put 2 kids on the end to help social distance, so they won't be in that cluster table like they've been in the past. So it will look different, but the teachers are really excited about trying to overcome the challenges and making it really still a very special experience for those 4 and 5-year-olds.
So we feel that they're still getting educational time.
Yes, yep, we will still run our schedule as normal. They'll still go to all their specials. They'll still have all their therapies. OT, PT, they push in to do a lot of preventative to try and, fix the grasps on their pencils and their crayons before it becomes a problem, before they learn the wrong habits. But they also do different exercises to help strengthen the core for some of those students that are struggling, so that they don't have to go directly to those services as they get older.
they all full day then, or?
I do, yep. We have all full day sections. The grant really writes that you should have all full day spots first before you go to the half day. When the release came out for the guidance plan, if we were to go half days, they have mentioned in there that we would be at risk of reducing our funding further than just the 20% that Mr. Fiskus just spoke to.
So, will they still be able to do fun and enriching things? at
So if
6
you know
foot-
Megan Buckley and Danielle Hyrick, you know fun. They just are naturally, that's their sweet spot. You know,
Right,
they
but
are
how do
so.
you keep the little
There's a
ones
lot of
apart?
dance parties and finger puppets and sing songs, and you know, there's a lot of things that you still can do at your seat. There's a lot of things that you can do within the classroom to allow for movement, to say this kiddo can go here on their towel, this kiddo can go here on the towel. There's the courtyard is right there for both of them to take kids outside to do activities. So they're definitely brainstorming and getting really creative. But overall, they're just both fun. Even just walking down the hall, they are just, it's like Miss Frizzle with their outfits, and just, you know, the kids are naturally drawn to them. They're very engaging no matter what they're doing. Nicole and I did speak this morning via video conference regarding some Title I funds, and we're trying to get creative with the way we can allocate some funds towards this grant, knowing that if we are only going to get 80%, making sure that we're cautious about what is written into the grant to make it the best, you know, the biggest bang for our buck. So even in that fashion, we're still trying to be as creative as we can with some of the restrictions that we're facing.
I think at the end of the day, though, the experience won't be the same. I think no matter how you look at it, all of our experiences are going to be different. And especially, I think that's going to, top down, it's going to be increasingly difficult to create those same experiences the lower you get. I think if we go into this aware of that and be flexible, I think we can move forward. If we don't, I think it's going to be a really hard venture. I've got a little one going in today. I don't think it's going to be the same as it was for my other one that's going into kindergarten. I think it's going to be very, very different. But I still think it's a valuable experience. Kids that do go to UPK are so much more ready to be able to jump into a full day of kindergarten, their stamina, their use their comfortability with the staff and the district. It's going to be different. I mean, I think we're going to have to, what does a smile look like behind a mask? I think it's going to be that incremental of learning.
And that's
it's
why
good to
those.
ask that question of what's it going to
Yeah.
look like. I don't know. I don't know, but I hate to say no, they're not, and then
You know, cooperative play will look different. You know, sensory table stuff will look different. There's gonna be a lot of individualized stuff, but we still can have them mask and interact. So if we are very cognizant about when they have their mask breaks and the duration of time that they are not masked, if they want to open up the kitchen and have the kids go play and they put their mask on and they hand sanitize, those are still experiences they're still going to be able to get, just like if they were outside on the playground. It's not going to be the same. I completely agree with you. The luxury, though, for some of our kiddos coming into UBK, they've never had school before, so they don't have anything to compare it to negatively. So they're just going to be really excited about being able to go through the cafeteria and getting, you know, their lunch, being able to go to the gym and you know, learning from Mrs. Grazio-Plain. They light up when they go to specials with, you know, art and music. They thrive in that environment, and those are such new experiences for them that I do think at the end of the day, with all the differences and all the hurdles, I think it will still be very meaningful and a very good experience for them. I think it'll be very positive for them. And I think what you were alluding to, the foundational skills that they will get, even though it's under a COVID restriction, being able to be ready readers when they go to kindergarten, knowing their sounds. We've spent a lot of time making sure that we have the right resources at our younger levels. The foundations kits are going to be really important for us this year, and having those 36 kids coming through, professionals at foundations when they get to kindergarten, is really a relief for our teachers. When our teachers look at their lists and see they have the UPK kids from us, they're relieved because some kids coming in from other programs or kiddos in kindergarten that never had any experience, they are trying to catch them up. Where our UPK kids are just seamlessly ready to go. Like you said, they know the routines, they know the teachers, they don't need an orientation day. They're ready to come in and stay. And so I do think that overall it still will be a very positive and memorable experience.
Tim, are you comfortable with continuing on with your pre-K program?
Yes.
John, at what point do we have to regard this 20% as a sure thing and begin to live with the $1.8 million cut?
Great question.
No answer?
Didn't seem real descriptive that what he gave us.
It is just,
No, I've read it a couple of
it's,
times.
and it's unbelievable. I can't answer that. I will say that when they tell us,
So, I guess my question is, when I look at the state budget, I think it's very likely that it would become permanent. If we go half the school year without implementing whatever we have to implement for a $1.8 million loss, will we be in worse shape than if we implement that early? By asking the question, I'm not implying the answer, I'm just curious.
and I can't answer that. If you throw in other factors where we still don't know if there's going to be fall sports. If there's not, there's some savings there with equipment and referees and supervision and stipends and all of that. There may not be winter sports. There's just so many factors that we just don't know. It's not going to be where it's all automatically that, okay, they say yes, and then tomorrow morning we got to cut $1.8 million. It's going to be a gradual release of, okay, this is what we need to do. This is how we have to tighten this up. Yeah, I just don't have a great answer for you because they don't have a great guidance for us. And unfortunately, it's one of those things where you just kind of have to keep plugging through and keep living in the moment until really the other shoe drops. And I would rather them, and most people said, I'd rather them say, you are only getting funded 80%, end of story, and then we can go ahead. But when they start withholding things, and again, they're playing games with UPK. We sent a letter home just last week regarding it because we're asking where is the funding, and nobody had an answer to it. If we end up having to shut down and go completely remote again, there is some savings in all of that with transportation and substitutes, and there's so many factors that are involved that nobody has the answer, and I don't either.
I guess, again, I understand what Laura's feeling is that how far of a hole do we dig before we say, hey, it's time to, we've got all these additional costs, we just had to buy these 275 hotspots.
Correct.
We're just digging a hole right now, and, if you wait until December to pull back the reins, it would be, it's too late, unfortunately.
Okay.
I guess that's what my concern is just
Right.
with the additional costs and not knowing, wait too long.
Right. My answer to that is, school districts can't go bankrupt, but unfortunately, I don't have those answers for you. There's just too much. Nicole and I are going to sit down next week, and we're not going to have answers when we sit down. And when the admin team sits down and we look at things, we just don't have those answers. There's things that, again, are on the first tier and on the second tier. I'd be concerned to get rid of those now because, what's the chance? And there's more likely a chance that, oh darn, something came through and okay, here's your money. I couldn't possibly imagine that they're going to cut all these UPK programs across the state. there was just no way. I mean, I think our answers are gonna come after the election.
You know, just to add to that, we're holding our budgets as tight as we possibly can right now, and in anticipation of that 20% cut. We're not like spending the extra money. We're not like,
Right.
I have a truck in my budget, I'm not gonna purchase that. There's a lot of things that we're doing to prepare for the 20% that may be coming.
Even though you're having to spend more for cleaning things,
Yeah,
but okay.
but some of the stuff that I'm purchasing will be even reimbursable and stuff like that.
Okay.
Also, so we are preparing for that 20% cut. We're not just, it's not business as usual right now. We're looking at that as, you know, that might be coming, so we're gonna hold off on a lot of things. My employees don't work overtime right now to amount to anything. We cut that. I didn't hire summer helpers, the kids, I had to cut that out. Just certain things that we thought were not appropriate to do, seeing that we might get that 20% cut. We're planning.
Which does lead me to, and I'll continue on with Lynn's building. The guidance really specifically warns us not to let our facilities be used by outside organizations. Currently, we haven't really had any requests, but in the fall, if we are here, we are going to kind of shut it down to outside organizations using our facilities that allows Jordan's crew to clean. We want to keep tabs on just our staff, our students in here. We will run extracurricular activities, but as far as outside groups on Saturdays, the guidance says, you know, please don't. I mean, we certainly can, but I'm in agreement that we need to really kind of lock down this building. Therefore, with all of the COVID guidance, we are not going to have the Healthy Kids program begin here in the fall. Not that I'm saying that we're eliminating it totally, but we are just not comfortable having kids here in the building before school, well into after hours. So, you know, we are in agreement on that. We've spoken and reached out to them. I know a lot of other districts are doing the same. So if there's any, you know, backlash from that, it's really, you know, the safety and security of our staff and students that are here on a daily basis, that we're really eliminating any outside organizations, clubs, you know, people coming here on a Saturday afternoon, all the little leagues. We are not to open up our campus really to any outside groups other than our own. And that will all fall in line if we have sports or not. Currently, our campus is closed to outside organizations. We've had people request to use our ball diamonds. The answer is no, because there's specific guidance that we have to provide the supervisor. We have to enforce that they're abiding by all the social distancing, and that puts a huge liability on the district if a ball, a team is using our ball fields on a Saturday afternoon, and we don't have anybody here, there's a game going on, and someone wants to come and say, hey, you know, where's the social distancing, and there's an issue with that. There's a huge liability to the district, so really we're saying no to all of that as of now. So the last thing I have too, which I'm going to need some direction for the board, is each and every year we contract to have an athletic trainer here. Over the years, we have purchased 900 hours, which equates to about $25,000 to have an athletic trainer here. For the most part, we do use those hours. And last spring, when we were closed, we had a little bit of a falling out because obviously without these spring sports, we had, you know, hours to use, and per their contract, really we had to pay out the company for not really rendering the services. So I am reluctant into engaging into another contract. We did send out an RFP. This company was the only one that replied in regards to providing athletic trainer services. Certainly I don't want to lose that, but I'm reluctant to signing a contract when we don't know that there's going to be fall sports. We don't know if there's going to be sports at all. And what if something really goes bad? We just can't put that money to somebody without services being provided. That being said, we've had many conversations with Jeff Schlagenhoff and his company, and they are now, and I don't want to say certifying, but their athletic trainers have been through courses and programs that now allow them to be COVID-19 assistants. So while we are not sure what sports are going to be happening, I can purchase hours, and this athletic trainer can be here on our campus more so to help our nurses in reopening. And I was thinking that if we purchase 500 to 600 hours, that an athletic trainer can be here for 4 or 5 hours a day, could start here at the middle high school, be here to help Kathy in the morning with temperature checks and supervision and temperature, the screening and helping, calling kids down in supervision. And then that athletic trainer can go down to the elementary and help, with Susie, because I think it's gonna be crazy. And we could use the hours for that, which is absolutely sustainable. And then if for some reason fall sports or winter sports come back, then that athletic trainer can kind of ease back into the role that they were originally intended for. But a lot of districts are doing that because there was a concern like mine that we're not going to engage into a contract and put money up front and not know what we're going to get. But this kind of gives us a guarantee that that first day when these kids come in here, we're going to use 4 to 5 hours of this athletic trainer to help more so our nurses with COVID-19, checkups and temperature screening. So I'd like to do that. It's in the budget, and I'd like to continue our partnership with this company. I think having a trainer here, and we've had a long-lasting relationship well before I got here with this company. I think they do a fantastic job. Like I said, we were kind of navigating last spring and had a little bit of a falling out, but I think having that option to use it as a COVID-19 assistant, any hands on deck, any extra hands to be here, I think is well worth it.
Is there a minimum number of hours they're required to purchase?
No, I would think because they want to make sure that someone is sustainable, that we purchased 900 hours. I'm sure that I could probably sign up for 500 or 600, which is what I'll ask him to do. I don't think 900 hours is where I want to go. We were looking to cut back anyway, and but again, he needs to make sure that he's got his staff on board and they're full time. A lot of the times they work in between districts, but I know districts are using these people in the morning. So I mentioned 4 or 5 hours a day for the first 50 or 60 days of school, which gives us about 300 hours or so. And
It would just seem like buying the least amount that you have to in order to reserve that person makes sense, because if you shut down in 3 weeks and you don't have a need for that person anymore, then it's less money.
sure, absolutely, I thought exactly.
Can the contract be devised contingent upon us? Is that,
No.
see,
And that's the concern.
Because like 900 is 25,000, right? You said 900 hours is
Yes.
25,000, so if we do 600, that gets us about 150 days of school. We're doing 4 hours a day.
And to be honest with you, I don't think we would need this person after the first 2 months. I think we'd have our protocols and procedures in place.
Dependent upon.
I think the first month of school is going to be very telling.
Depending upon parents' ability to use the what the heck is it called?
Parent Square.
The parent square, and not having to go and check. Because I can't imagine having to go. Let's say 200 parents don't use it, which could be right with that.
But there's also supervision issues where if a kid comes down to the nurse's office and doesn't feel well, even before they're screened, they should just be immediately isolated in case they do screen positive. So there's supervision issues. So I find that this person can be very helpful, at least for the first month or two, even if sports don't come back. I do think at some point we are going to have some sort of winter sports season. I think we will ease back into it. But again, even if we don't, we still have someone here on staff helping with, with those students, with the, employees. I mean, a nurse may be taking care of another student while this COVID assistant can now take someone that came down, put them in the isolation room and do some temperature checks and do some screenings for the nurses. I think they're gonna need it. I think that's the one job in a school that is gonna be overwhelming, and to provide any sort of support would be great, and it would be great through this company. And I think, Matt is right. I'll talk with him and say, what can we work out here? I know it's new, can I purchase 400 hours, 500 hours, and go from there. Like I said, on his end, the concern is that he needs to make sure that he's got, a job for him, his employees, and needs to make sure that, we've talked about, can we just cut it off when it's done? And he said no, because I'm paying these people to be full-time on my staff, which I do get. So that's kind of where, we had some disagreements, but I think with this new option of having them serve, even if we don't have sports in another capacity, we're able to do that.
And the subs that are gonna be on, no, they're not full-time subs, but people are scheduled to be there for subs each day, would they be able to help with that?
No.
Or do they want that
I mean,
training and stuff?
they can do temperature checks, but I'm gonna tell you, you have a sub that comes in here, and all of a sudden now you're gonna throw them into the lion's den in the nurse's office. I think those subs are more to help with just cafeteria, hall monitoring. When a teacher goes down, and has to leave, they're there. I don't think I wanna hire a sub and say, oh, by the way, go screen a kid and go temperature check all these kids. I'd rather have like certified, qualified staff to do that. Those extra subs are more so just for an extra set of eyes and hands starting off the school year, in places. We may not need them. Again, it's just kind of monitor and adjust, but I do think as the year goes on, staffing could become an issue.
I think the nurse's job is hard on a regular basis.
Let alone what they're gonna face comes.
Toughest jobs in the building.
Right, so I think it's money worthwhile and spent wisely.
So your proposal is are you asking us to approve a specific proposal?
I'm asking if I could move forward in using those hours for that purpose. That I would, I would come up with a contract, and Nicole and I would work out, the monies and stuff like that. It has been budgeted. The budget usually rolls over and we check things, so this isn't all of a sudden a new $25,000 that we're asking for, and I'm not gonna say it's gonna be that much, but at this point, we weren't even going to look at an athletic trainer, but now with this new option, my ears perked up and said, I think the nurses are gonna need some. So this isn't new money, it's just reallocating the hours that we had last year to continue on with this.
Would there be flexibility to use up those hours, as you say, in the first 60 days of school, or if things come down before, push them off? Is there a flexibility in how
Yeah,
quickly
usually
you use them?
the contract is for the year. It'll say, a minimum of so-and-so per season. Like our last contract was a maximum of 900 hours. And then we would just, more so Jeff, with athletics, would just keep documentation of how many hours we use. They were always here for home games, home practices, things like that. So, it would really be up to us to utilize those hours. So we could very easily say, okay, we can purchase 600 hours or 500 hours. I want this person here 4 hours every day for the first 2 months of school and see how things go. There's always an option that if you use up your hours, you can buy more. Of course, they're a little more, but yeah, it's. a couple that have done that.
I definitely can foresee the nurses needing help.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I think it's,
What I can do is I'll reach out, and once we have something solidified, I'll send out a quick, email and let you know, what that is.
What would the
We'd like to be set for that September 11th. So
what would happen if, say, one of our nurses does get COVID? How do you do that for that?
I hear you.
I mean, could this person? I mean, obviously they can't take on the full nurse.
No, there's only so much they can do, and I talked to Pat about it, and he said they can certainly help with the symptom checking, the temperature checking, but they can't they're not going to be performing nurse functions. They can't hand out medications to kids. They can't do things like that. They are athletic trainers first, and they've taken a couple courses that qualify them to help in some of those regards. But
There are substance use nurses. I don't know if they would be long-term or how you get
Far
that.
between, though,
Yes,
the
they are.
substitute nurses.
Oh, yeah, they are.
Kind of, if you hold your breath when you see one coming in.
so that's all that I have.
It's my favorite.
Okay, thank you, John. New business, consent agenda, we resolve items 7.2 through 7.9 be approved.
Can I have one question? What if, I didn't get, when I was reading, what's the Title I stipend referred to? And the consent agenda.
I'll get the motion and second.
Oh, okay.
We got a motion for that?
Motion.
Second, yep.
Okay, discussion on Title I second.
Lynn, is that you?
Yes.
So, yeah, in the amount of $4,700.
So it's just a payment date?
Yes.
Okay. I just didn't understand what it was. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Communications? Seems like we have discussion roundtable. Submitted anything?
I didn't submit anything, but I just want to make a quick comment, if that's okay, right? There was community support.
I think you're going to have to speak up for
There was community support here for the reopening plan. I just want to make it clear that any reference to teachers, I believe teachers are an extension of our community. And I don't want our faculty here to think that we don't support the teachers at all. I do believe that there are good concerns. I sat in my classroom, I think last Wednesday, before we met at 6:45 in the morning by myself. Just like I would on any northern day, and I just was having a hard time figuring out how is this going to look. I think we all have to come to this in a flexible way. I'm not going to be able to have my kids put clothespins in a bin to say that they're here. I have to figure out something different. I don't want the community to think that there's anything wrong with our faculty, because I do not believe that there is. And I want our faculty to know that we support them and the concerns that they do have about coming back. Teachers that I've worked with over the years, or my kids have had over the years, have always been there for us. And I think they're just concerned about coming back. And I am too. I think all of us are. So I have no
to say something. I need to second that, because, you know, we met with the teachers, we've been meeting with parents, and I've always said too, you know, we're all human, and, I'm nervous too. You know, we're gonna do the best we can, and we need to move forward. And I will tell you that the faculty has, you know, the faculty from the bus drivers to the cafeteria ladies to, you know, the buildings and grounds crew to the teachers, all have been unbelievable. And their questions are absolutely valid, and we don't have all the answers, and we'll try to answer them as best we can, and then our answers may look different 24 hours later based on something else that we heard or thought of. But I will say that I live in a district where it's very contentious, and I, you know, hear about other issues, and I'd like to say that I'm very, very proud of our district, our administrative team for their effort, for the teachers and their efforts, and it's, you know, everybody wants to get up and have a lesson plan and know what they're doing from minute to minute, and it's not going to look like that. And I want to continue on moving forward, and, you know, I guess be the ones out there that said that we did it and it can work. And so I know there's a lot of work ahead of us the next 2.5 weeks. Those parent meetings on Thursday, I'm sure we'll get, you know, bombarded with questions, but we'll make sure that our families and our students and our faculty and staff are going to come back here feeling comfortable to teach and learn. So I do have to agree with you, Justin, that it's been great.
We can't do this unless the teachers are here. That's it.
Right.
Bottom line. And
We're all a part of this. We
They
can't
gotta
do
be
this if the bus drivers aren't here. We can't do this if the cleaners aren't here, or the nurses, and again, the cafeteria ladies and everybody. It's just, you know, they've been awesome. So.
I want to say that too. I was touched by the support expressed by the community. I really appreciated that. I am in one role now as a Board of Education member, but I spent 30 years as a teacher here. No staff members are perfect, but neither are any of the children we teach. So I want our staff to feel comfortable and confident as well, and supported, and as if they know that the board is proud of them and behind them and willing to support them. Others among us have expressed it well, that teachers have literally thousands, hundreds of thousands of decisions to make, tiny and large, that impact kids. And we've just put a huge new responsibility on them. And the fact that they ask questions over and over and want details is only an evidence of how conscientious they know they have to be, because they're out there gonna take all the slings and arrows. So I too want to appreciate so much that group of parents came to support our school district. And I want our staff to know the same thing. It's really important that they know that we have their backs.
Thank you. Subcommittee reports, I don't think we've met any committees. If I'm wrong. Personnel, consent agenda, be it resolved that personnel items 10.2 through 10.5 be approved in consent agenda. Motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I like the split with the third coordinators. I like how we have one in the elementary, one in the high school. I think it's smart. I'd love to see that continue. Not just for a year, but for quite some time. I'd be curious to see how that mentor program kind of evolves here. I think it's a good idea.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
what you can there. It's just that, I do believe the community is here to support the whole, administration, board, teachers, everybody. And that, I think that as a board member, if there's any staff at any level or whatever they need, that as a board member, we kind of want to hear, what can we do to help make this work, because everybody wants to make it work. And I think you have not only a board, but you have a community behind that really wants to make this work, and make it work for everybody. It's not going to be perfect. It may not be pretty at times, but it's just one of those things that I think we all have to go into it working together, from faculty to board to community. And it's just going to be very important this year that we all work together. And I think this is the community that can do it.
Just amen to that, and it's gonna be an interesting year.
So yeah, I told this group that it'll be, the discussion I'll have with my girls after a couple of weeks is, are you having fun and are you learning? And hopefully it's yes and